while we're here, we'll just go ahead and jump over to some of the object stuff before we get into the biome related things. Objects are, like I said before, part of the scene graph. I mean, you can have this landscape be whatever you want, and all you have to do, just like the camera, is just add an object. If we add a second object, what we can do is create a folder. We can drag these two blank objects, and I'll populate these here in just a second. But what's cool is when you establish a folder, you'll see the two objects here in the object selection panel here on the left. For example, I'm going to select these small rocks, and you can see that there's 3 small rocks associated with this particular bundle. But you can also select each individual type of rock and have the various adjustments between placing an object individually or painting it like the paintbrush and scattering them throughout. One thing I'm going to do which I think is going to be really fun, is I'm going to go ahead and download an asset from the Megascans library, from Fab. Let's go to Fab, and the format that is best, I think, right now to import into World Creator is GLB. I tested a few others, but GLB is currently right now the one that is the most optimized for bringing everything in as it's supposed to. So I'm here on Fab's website right now. I got the Quixel Megascans library selected. If I go to formats, I can go down here and select GLB. So it's going to filter everything out filter anything in that's GLB. And then I'm just going to go here to the search bar and type in Nordic rock. And then let's just choose this Nordic forest rock small. How about we just do the large one? Yeah, let's do the large one. Download. And then you'll see if we scroll down here under converted files, you'll see the GLB format. There's GLTF, which works as well, USDZ. But so let's choose GLB, and we'll choose the high quality preset, which is the second from the top here. You can download that. Let's save that here. So now if we click the open box here, I've got my object library here, and the one that I just opened is this one here. And I'll give it a second, and it loaded pretty dang quick. So we have the object, and we'll call this Fab Rock, if that's appropriate. So with this rock selected, you can see the guide on how to add these objects onto the landscape. So I'm going to go and press Shift, click. So now this rock is quite larger than anticipated. But one cool thing that I really love about this is, as you can see, the rendering engine is working, but the quality, the quality of the assets, like you were saying earlier, Stefan, where it doesn't really matter, or it really doesn't feel like it matters what scale or how the poly count of this model is. We can literally just put it in and it would just do its thing. I mean, we can even rotate it however we need to rotate it. And one thing I like is if you're putting these individually or even painting these on the landscape and you have it hovering about like a magician doing, just click over here on the left, align to terrain, and it'll automatically align that object's origin placement point onto the terrain. And I'm assuming that's how it works, is it takes those factors from that object and utilizes the coordinates of that object. And this is really handy. So what I'm going to do actually is make this model as a whole a little bit smaller. And if we go over to the right side where we've got the model selected, we can do the model scale. So these adjustments here on the right are sort of going to universally change all the assets together. And these settings here are for the individual instances that you click. If I were to click another one or another one and zoom out, with this object selected, I can go through and select each one of the assets individually and adjust them individually as well. I can even adjust the vertical rotation, and these settings are not the settings of the individual asset in terms of its scale or placement. That's what the little menu down here is for. These settings are sort of what you would call it the procedural settings. So each time I click, the options for the position, rotation, and scale are slightly different than the last time I clicked, if that makes sense. And I can go through and control click an instance. Control right click an instance and delete them individually. So let's make this model a little bit smaller. Let's hide our flowers, ferns, and plants. And so now under the scatter option, which this is a very big radius, I got our scatter radius of 2, a density of 0.1, and so that's going to be a really nice density mix. And if I were to paint, maybe that's a little too dense. So we will go to 0.02. That's still pretty dense, isn't it?
Yeah.
0.001 maybe.
Yeah, that's not yet perfect.
No, it's fine. And it also is a testament to the scale of this. It makes it a little easier if I lower the scale. There we go. So this is a super high res model, and it's painting in pretty efficiently, like it's nothing. One thing I was curious about, since we loaded a file that was the high poly version of this file, I don't know if anyone has asked before about being able to load in multiple LODs of the same asset and having a slider for distances. So whenever you're super close, you can see the high res model of a version of that model, and the super far ones will get billboards or a lower LOD. I don't think it's set up like that now, but I just didn't know if you guys had any plans on doing something like that in the future.
For Work Creator, actually, this wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in Work Creator, also, I always would suggest to use the highest poly module model that you can use. In Work Creator, it doesn't make sense to work with LODs. The only sense it would make is that if you're creating a gaming map, then supporting LODs would become interesting if you're exporting that terrain along with all the objects to Unity or to Unreal or to any other engine.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are probably working with the LOD system. I don't know, in Unreal they use Nanite, so I don't even know if it's really necessary to do that there too, but in other engines probably it is interesting. But in Work Creator you wouldn't work with LODs. However, we're supporting that, so we are going to support that because of the export options for exporting your gaming map for game engines.
Oh, that's handy. So it would at least account for, like, if you wanted to do that, you could.
Yeah.
I loaded in this other Fab Rock or Megascans Rock. We'll call it the Super Rock. So as you saw a second ago, we can place individual assets, and now this one is pretty large. We can place individual assets, or like we did before, we can scatter them. But if you select the folder itself that has these two assets in there, you can see there's Object 1, Object 2 associated with the Fab Rock and Fab Super Rock. With scatter, we can paint, I'm assuming, both of these. Like if I were to select blue, and I think that I found a bug there. With I'll do it on the small rocks. If you select one, what's blue will be painted in procedurally, and then what's not blue won't be. So, and you can, if you see this little 100 down below each one of these is a slider for the percentage probability that this rock could be used. So let's increase the density for these three. And I believe, yep, they are all it's increase, not the distance, but the scatter density. Yeah, you can see all those rocks have been placed right here. They're super tiny. Maybe we can increase their scale range to be a little bit higher. There we go. You guys can see that now. There we go. So this is an assortment. Basically, selecting the folder allows you to procedurally paint with probabilities, scatter distances, scatter radiuses, the range of all three assets together. If you want this rock to be 100%, its probability always happens based on these settings. You can do that. Maybe you want this one to be close to 50%, and this one you only want to see it ever so often. And then you paint this somewhere over here, and you'll see that mix associated with those ranges. Again, if you go back to the folder that you previously were, those probability percentages will stick with you. But I think currently right now, if I were to uncheck all three of these, that panel disappears. So that's a small bug that we can go through. Is it possible to export terrain made in World Creator to Unity with all the assets like rocks and vegetation or only terrain maps? And I think, yes, Stefan, you had answered that. So yes, I think Unity, like if you do the bridge tool with Unity, it does bring in, I think I've seen that before actually in World Creator 2. You were able to add objects and it brought in the objects with it. So that should be possible. Do the objects get exported? Yeah. Does that happen with Unreal too? If you were to, or is that at least the idea? If you were to paint your objects here, would those be exported? Well, I guess with any of the bridge tools, aside from Unity, is any bridge tool, the plan for whatever objects you put here get exported to those engines.
Yeah, you will have the option. Mm-hmm. So there will be two possibilities. The one is like exporting the objects along with the maps and everything else. And the bridge tool is going to replace to recreate the entire terrain as is in Unity or Unreal, along with the objects. So the objects will be imported. You will get your assets in Unity or Unreal, and they will be placed accordingly, just like in World Creator. The other option is like, let's say you're using objects that you don't have the rights for using them in Unreal or Unity. Mm-hmm. Then you just can say, okay, export everything except the objects, but I want the locations of the objects along with their ideas to be exported. So in the bridge tool, you will see the available objects as placeholders, and then you can just drag and drop your own objects, your own assets that you purchased in Unity Asset Store or Unreal or in Fab, and drag and drop them, and then the engine is going, or the bridge tool is going to use those objects and place them.
I gotcha. That makes sense.